Hello, everyone. Welcome to the College Fairs of Greater Denver. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, our first panel is The Road Ahead, Finding Your College Fit and Match. This is a webinar. If you have any questions, we encourage you to post your questions in the Q&A so that our presenter can answer those at the end of the session. And if you have any further needs, this presentation is being recorded and will be posted at strivescan.com/Greater Denver. I will now pass it over to Angie.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and welcome everyone. My name is Angie Fernandez-Barone. I'm the Executive Director for Student Engagement, Retention, and Persistence at Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It is a small liberal arts college, and like small college communities, we have a tremendous investment in student success. I have decades of experience in college admissions and in this student success area, and I'm very excited to share some thoughts with you today. I hope you'll put questions into the Q&A. I'm going to move through some information and then move to questions at the end. So feel free at any point to put your questions in the Q&A. We're going to talk today about finding college fit and match. I will return again and again to the idea that this has to be rooted in the individual student, finding that individual student's fit and match the best college environment to both push that student and help them to thrive and be successful. So let's get started. Right here. So we're going to start with questions that you should ask yourself. These are questions students should ask themselves. Those guiding students in the college search process should encourage students to reflect on these kinds of things, to try to get to a picture of the kind of college environment that would be ideal for them individually. Questions like what classes they enjoy and why. The why is so important. It's not just about choosing a favorite subject, but thinking about what it is that's happening in that class that the student loves. Is it the discussion? Is it the opportunity to be in the lab and doing the work? But really thinking about their best class experiences will begin to give a picture of the kind of academic environment that they might want at the next stage. Asking themselves, students asking yourself, what about my school do I like and what don't I like? We want to think about both the positives and the negatives. What are the things that I love in the environment that I'm in that I want to maintain? I want to have that again in my college experience. What are the things I would really love to experience differently? Differences in the environment with the next school that I choose. How do I learn best? This is absolutely huge. I think some students have had more experience in thinking about how they learn. For others, this will be a question they haven't really pondered before, and where we can encourage that. Students, where you can think about your best learning environment, that will be really powerful. Of course, thinking about what you're passionate about, because those passions can lead to the choice of a major, choice of other experiences that you'll embark on in college. And the college search should be targeted at places that can provide you access to those kinds of opportunities. Asking yourself, asking your student, what do you see as my strengths? This is a good thing to consider in self-reflection, but also in conversation with people who know you very well, students, talking with your family, your teachers, your coaches, the advisors for your clubs, all of the folks that you're close with in your life will help you to think about your strengths. And that will be valuable both as you think about the kinds of strengths that you have and that you want to develop, and the college environment where that can happen. And also as you think about how you want to present yourself as an applicant to the colleges and universities that you ultimately choose. Think about how you spend your free time, because how you spend your time when it's up to you is a really great indication of the things that you are passionate about. So again, tying this to the college search, What would I do with my free time if I could choose anything? Will lead you to think about the kind of environment that you want to be in college, right? If you would rather go hiking than anything else in the world, thinking about the location for your college and opportunities to go hiking might be a really great factor to include in the process. Thinking about who's helped you be successful is really powerful, because those people that you gravitate toward, those people who have supported you, who are role models in your life, can really give you some indications of directions that you might want to go into. They also may be some of the people that you want to ask to write recommendations for you at some point. And what are some new things that I could try to challenge myself? Because we want to find fit and match in the colleges that we apply to, that we ultimately attend. But we also want to know that it won't be maybe perfectly comfortable. We want to try new things. We want to take risks and take on new challenges. So thinking about some of the things that you hope to challenge yourself with in the coming years is, again, a great way to think about the kind of college that might be right for you. You're going to take the answers to all of these questions, and then you're going to create a plan for how you're going to engage with all of these things that are important to you. And you may already be underway in doing this, but you know, if you're fascinated by animals and you have opportunities to take classes in biology, classes that will maybe teach about wildlife, right? Your class choices might be ways to explore these interests that you've identified. Clubs, extracurricular activities, certainly a way to explore that. If, for example, leadership is so important to you, and that's something that you want to develop in yourself, or that you feel is one of your strengths already, your clubs and athletics can be a place where you really develop that. Work can be a really powerful experience. These are all things that colleges will look at ultimately. Internships can be really valuable, and a lot of students wait until college to do internships, but you don't have to. You could be getting some shadowing experiences and learning a bit about the professions that interest you, even during high school. And again, thinking about your free time. How do you spend it when you're just focused on something that you love? So you're going to create a plan to engage with all of these things. And in as many of these different ways as you can, be thinking about exploration of your interests, development of your passions. You're also along the way developing that resume of experiences and achievements that will be important when you're showcasing all of this for colleges. Okay. And we want to ask ourselves, based on some of these things we've already explored, what might I want to study? Do I want to call it a college with smaller or larger classes? Do I want research opportunities? Are there support services that I'll need? Do I want to be close to home or far away? What kind of area do I want to be in? Are there financial factors that will impact my options? Now, this is where we're taking those questions we've asked ourselves, the things that we are reflecting on to get to really the values in our college search. Now we're applying it to really thinking about the college opportunities. What are the specific things that I want to look for based on the self-reflection that I've done? These are some of the questions to ask yourself that might direct you to particular types of colleges, colleges that offer particular opportunities. Again, thinking about what your needs and what your wants are. We'll talk more about financial factors because those are really important in the college search process, but I want to come back to that because there are some really important context pieces for thinking about financial factors in your college search. This is a process, and it is a process that you will cycle back through repeatedly. If you students are very early on in this college search process, there may be multiple times that you return to that self-reflection, you return to these questions about the kinds of colleges that could be a match for you, or the characteristics of colleges that would be a match for you. You might return to that several times. It is helpful, I think, to do that revisiting of these questions and to talk with the people who are important in your life about those questions and how your interests are evolving, how your thoughts about what you want at the next stage of your education are evolving. Okay, you're going to do a lot of research in this process, right? That self-reflection piece in the beginning is absolutely essential before you move to the kinds of steps that you see here. And that's because you will go into a, for instance, a search engine. The College Board has a search engine, big future. They're actually just evolving it into a new product. But an engine that will let you search among over 4,000 colleges and universities in the US. If you haven't done that self-reflection first to narrow in on the factors that are going to be important for you, it can be overwhelming, but you will find that there are tools that your school makes available. Sometimes there are systems for both researching colleges and for indicating the schools that you're interested in for your school counselor to be able to see. Ultimately, that can be the same system through which your transcripts are sent to the colleges that you're applying to. So it's important to use. It's not only an option, but it's really important to use your school system so that you are like registered with that school counseling office for the work that you're doing, and you're checking all of the boxes for their process. I do encourage using search engines. I think they can be really helpful, and if your school's programs don't allow for that search engine functionality, College Board is a really great one, but there are a lot out there. College fairs, like the Greater Denver College Fairs, are a really amazing opportunity to learn about colleges. Take that list of priorities that you've created out of the self-reflection and go to those different college tables, go to different virtual sessions, and pose questions about the opportunities that you would have at those places. And don't only go to the schools that you already know well, but check out some schools that might be very new to you, and then you might find some wonderful surprises. A great way to do this is to go through a search engine, kind of narrow down the list. Now, when I say narrow it down, you might, based on location, size, availability of a major, variety of factors, you might narrow your list down, but still have 100 schools on that list. And that's okay. These college fairs can be a really great way to narrow the list down further in conversation with people from these different schools. You can absolutely do research on the web, and there are some fantastic resources out there. Websites are all very, very pretty. And we're going to talk later about getting beyond all the pretty pictures. But websites certainly are just packed with information. And that's a great way to learn about the schools on your list as you're starting to narrow it down. Standardized testing is a really valuable part in the process, in that, for instance, the College Board with the SAT will ask whether you want to be part of the College Search Service. And that is a way in which information about you, if you allow it, would be shared with colleges and universities, who will then reach out to you. So there are both proactive ways in which you'll go out seeking information about colleges, and through things like getting on colleges' mailing lists, you open yourself up to schools reaching out to you. The next step in this process is to try some test visits. I think this is especially valuable if you have a lot of time. If you're a sophomore or junior in high school, and there is time on the calendar before you've got to have your list of colleges for applications really nailed down, test visits are a great way to take the next step in thinking about how your priorities, the characteristics of the colleges that you're looking for, how those things are coming together. So what I mean by test visit is that you think about types of colleges that seem to be a good match, a good fit for what you're looking for your priorities. And rather than, let's say you're going to do a college search that spans the entire country, rather than flying all over the nation to visit schools, very specific schools, you can start close to home. By starting close to home without having to travel great distances, you could, for instance, travel to a school that's more of a city campus, then maybe go visit a school that's in a more suburban or rural area. You could go to a smaller or a larger school, a public or a private school. There are all kinds of ways that you can sort of get a closer to home experience with types of places. You could also use virtual visits to explore types of places. This is a way to reinforce the picture that's forming, test the picture that's forming around your priorities and the college characteristics that fit what it is that you're looking for. So it's a close to home test. Now we're going to start forming a list, right? You've thought about what's important to you, what you hope to experience, what your best experiences have been. You started to form a picture of an ideal college environment for you. Maybe you've begun doing some research and pulling together types of colleges that fit the type of place that you want to find. Maybe you've done some test visits close to home. Now you're going to pull it all together, and you're going to lay that up against the school's selectivity and institutional priorities. So what I'm talking about here is taking a broader picture and maybe a list that's narrowed down to 100 or 50 or 30 schools. It's still a lot, many more than you're actually going to apply to. You want to layer information about selectivity and institutional priorities onto that list of schools to form that final list that you're going to apply to. So let's talk about selectivity for a moment. Selectivity refers to the demand for places at that college or university, the number of applications for the number of spaces that are available. And you can never look at these statistics and take them as a guarantee. You can't look at the typical SAT score, ACT score for an admitted student and say, okay, that's a match for me. You can't, take your GPA and the typical admitted student GPA and assume that that means that you'll be admitted. There are a lot of factors that come into college admissions decision making, but selectivity can give you a sense of where a school might be a little bit more of a reach for you, where it seems a pretty good match to your credentials, and where you would be a really strong student. Your credentials would make you a really strong candidate in that pool. Again, not a guarantee, but that breadth in your set of colleges that you're applying to protects you in two important ways. By having safety schools, and this is an example would be, you look at the middle 50%, the 25th percentile, the 75th percentile of GPA for admitted students, or standardized test scores for admitted students. If you look like the 75th percentile, that would be more of a safety school for you, not a guarantee, but there's a greater likelihood that you'll be admitted. Having some schools that fit that profile protects you in case in some unexpected way this becomes an especially selective competitive year for that particular school. Things can vary from year to year. So you're looking at historic data and making some decisions, but we don't know what this year will look like. So having some schools where you think to yourself, I'm a pretty strong candidate for that school. You want to have some of those in the mix that still fit all of those things that you're looking for, important note. But you also want to have in the mix some schools where you look like the 25th percentile of the admitted students. Your credentials look like that. Because if that school is a beautiful match for you, don't pass on it because you don't look like the typical admitted student. There, you look at averages and half the class is above and half the class is below that mark. You could be a really great student for that college or university, and you could be the student who does get admitted. Give yourself that shot, try for that, but you don't want to have an entire list of colleges that would all look like reach schools for you. You also don't want an entire list of colleges that look like safety schools for you. You want to give yourself a shot at the more competitive and the less competitive schools relative to your credentials, to give yourself some good breadth in the schools that you put on that final list of places I'm going to apply to. Okay, another way to think about reach schools, match schools, safety schools is to think about cost. So a reach school might be that place where you say, that cost is not something that I and my family can afford. But if that school were to provide me with scholarships and financial aid, I would absolutely be interested in that place. That's one of the financial reach schools to keep on your list. You won't know what funding you could get from that school unless you apply. There are things called cost calculators on websites that can give you an idea of what particular colleges will view as your contribution, your expected contribution as a student and as a family to the cost of college. That will give you kind of a sense of what to expect from the need-based financial aid process. But scholarships in particular, you probably won't know until you've applied to see what you're going to be awarded. So having some financial reaches in the mix gives you a shot at those places if they come through and make it affordable for you. But having some schools that look pretty comfortable, or that you would say, like, as a backup plan, boy, if I don't get any financial aid or scholarships, these are some schools that are going to be great options for me. You want to have all of those types of schools if cost is a factor for you in the admission process. Okay, I want to talk a bit about institutional priorities. This can be a bit of a tricky thing to find out, but as you're researching colleges, especially when that list starts to get narrowed down, right? Maybe you're down to 15 schools, and the national average number of applications is 8 applications per student. You're going to get it down by half again, but you've narrowed this down to a reasonable number of schools. You're out there on their websites researching them. Maybe you talk with the representative when they come to your school, or you go to a college fair to talk with a representative, and you learn about what that college is really invested in. That sense that you'll develop of that institution's, that college or university's priorities is really valuable. I give a couple of examples here. The college that has just built a brand new performing arts center is telling you something about their investment in the arts. And if you have talents that align with that, you know that both you're going to see some great resources on that campus for you to explore your interest, and that you might be a candidate of even greater interest to that admission committee because your interests and your talents align with where that college or university is making investments. A classic example of this is athletics. If you are an athlete being recruited by that college or university, and a coach is telling you, you will be a really valuable member of this team, you'll be a real contributor, that's a lift factor in this process, right? If we're looking at multiple candidates with, let's say in a theoretical world, they have exactly the same credentials, but one of those students is the artist who's going to take advantage of our new performing arts center and thrive in that program. One of those students is an athlete who a coach is telling us will be a real impact player. Those are the kinds of factors that can lift you up in the process. And again, as I said before, they become the things that can both be a matter of fit for you with that school, and they can be opportunities for you to showcase how great a choice you would be for that college or university. There are some other examples here too, robotics or even geography, right? The school serves an in-state population, and you are an in-state candidate. There is an advantage in that. If the school does not specifically serve an in-state population and really values geographic diversity, then the fact that you are a student, for instance, a student from Colorado who wants to come to a college in Pennsylvania, that becomes a really exciting factor because we love that diversity in our student body. Lots of ways that you can come at this, lots of different institutional priorities might come to light for you in your research, but it's something that you want to be looking for. Then you're going to finalize your list, right? And you're going to go back to that self-reflection that you've done maybe repeatedly to think about what your needs and your wants are and the kind of college that will fit that. You're now thinking about the selectivity of the different schools that you're considering and making sure that you're being responsible in terms of varying levels of selectivity with your list. And you're thinking about those institutional priorities, both for fit and knowing that those will be features that could make you a really attractive applicant. This is how all of this coming together is how you're going to finalize that list of schools to which you'll ultimately apply. When it's time to, well, when you're researching colleges, right? You're gathering information, you're getting answers to your questions, but along the way, we might just know that you're doing this research and know about your interests, maybe even hear from you about the points of match and fit that you're finding. Those can be valuable pieces in the process too. We talk sometimes about demonstrated interest. What interest has this applicant demonstrated? And in some places, again, if all credentials were equal, the student who has demonstrated interest might rise in that pool of otherwise equal candidates and be the one that we want to give that admission opportunity to. So signing up to be on a mailing list. Some other things I've mentioned, going, a college or university visits your school, if you have the opportunity to talk at a college fair, if you have the opportunity to visit, whether a virtual visit or in person. Many colleges and universities will keep track of student engagement, and in tough decision-making moments, the interest that you've demonstrated to that college through your interactions with them could be a factor. So this is another thing that you can do to kind of give yourself lift in that pool of candidates. And let me throw out too, sometimes that's a phone call or an email message, particularly if you have a regional counselor at that college or university, someone who's specifically working with students from your area. That can be a great opportunity to have that person know your name and know you, and maybe along the way in your communication with them, your questions are being answered. You're gaining from that communication in terms of your college search, but the other gain is in that college knowing that you are interested, should that become a factor in the admission process. Then we're going to think, okay, so this process has brought us from this, just in this country alone, over 4,000 colleges and universities, all of the possibilities, zeroing in on what you care about, the colleges that can provide you the kinds of opportunities that you want and need. And now you've taken that list of schools down to a list that in terms of selectivity and institutional priorities also makes you think like this, boy, these are the places. These are my colleges that I'm going to apply to. Now you're going to think about how you're going to present yourself to those colleges. This is the process that you'll move through. It really begins in junior year in some ways, and especially as you move into senior year. You're going to begin thinking about the things that you want to highlight in your application, the ways that you want to show these colleges or universities that you would be a great match, a great fit, and a student that they want to have on their campus. You are going to reach out to contacts, like that idea of contacting a regional counselor. If you have the opportunity to connect with someone from the colleges and universities that end up on your short list, take advantage of that, and be sure to take advantage of every opportunity to demonstrate your interest. And the third thing on here is really sort of a joke, but sort of not. And that is to create an email address for your college search that you'll be proud of. Oftentimes, Students will create an email account specifically for managing the college search because the volume of email can be difficult to manage. It's a lot. Sometimes a student will partner with their parent or guardian and they'll share access to that inbox so that both can be gathering information and sorting through that volume. But make sure that when you create an email name for yourself, that it's appropriate, right? Every once in a while we'll see email addresses and think, oh, I need to pretend I didn't see that, right? Okay, now you're going to prepare to apply. You've moved through the processes, all these decision-making processes. You've narrowed down that list of schools that you want to apply to. And what are the steps involved in actually making that application? You do need to know how your school manages the process. So I mentioned earlier that your school might have a system that you could use for researching colleges, and maybe I'm thinking about, the school that my own kids went to. You could like particular colleges. You could give an indication in there to your school counselor that you plan to apply to a place. It's important to know how your school manages the process, whether it's through some kind of tool like that, whether they have other processes in that advising office, college guidance office that you need to move through. You want to make sure you're on top of that. You want to take standardized tests. And I'll say, I work with a college that has been test optional for 2 decades, long time. But you never want to limit your opportunities. Even if you're researching colleges and finding a lot of them are test optional, you never know if there might be a school that you add to the list, or you end up applying for a scholarship that requires a standardized test score. It's important to take standardized tests. Can be an opportunity to say, I want colleges to send me information as well. But to have that test score so you've got it if you're going to need it, even if you end up applying to schools that are test optional or test free. You want to get to know your school counselor, your college counselor well. Take every opportunity to meet with that person, to be interacting. Many colleges, not all, but many, will require a recommendation from your school counselor or college counselor. And so the ways in which you help that person get to know you so that they can write a good recommendation and know you well to do that is really valuable. Teachers too, you're gonna be choosing teachers to write recommendations for you. And this is the part of the process when I was saying before, it sort of starts during junior year and into senior year. Much of the application preparation is happening in senior year, but very often students will choose a teacher from their junior year of high school to be their recommender. Because the teachers for your senior classes, if you haven't had those teachers before, they might only know you for a month when it's time for them to write a recommendation. They might not know you as well as teachers who spent all of junior year in a classroom with you. So be thinking about teachers from your junior year. Maybe you have an amazing experience with a teacher from your senior year. That's great. I'm not saying that you can't choose a teacher from a senior year class, but very often students are choosing teachers from their junior year classes. And I want you to think about, with your recommendations, not necessarily choosing teachers for the subjects that come most easily to you. Colleges will want to know how you've risen to challenges. Choosing the teacher that has seen you rise to a challenge, maybe assigned a really hard project, and you had to work really hard at it. They saw the work that you put in on it, and that teacher can now speak not just, this sounds terrible, but like not just to your innate ability, like you on cruise control, you are just a natural with this subject area. That's not as impressive as here's a student who's really eager to learn, working really hard, putting in the time, doing the work, and this final project was wow. That's a really powerful recommendation. So be thinking about teachers who can speak to your abilities, but among those abilities, how you've risen to challenges. You're going to begin preparing your resume of activities, and this is valuable as an upload with your application. You want to fill out a full application form. If there's a space for activities, you want to fill that out, but sometimes a resume gives you more space to not just list activities very, very briefly, but be able to maybe have a paragraph set under there that talks about the nature of your involvement, or why you're involved, or what kind of leadership role you took with that activity that you were involved in. And those activity resumes can be really valuable to your recommenders as well. Because if that, let's say, junior year teacher knows you really well from the classroom, but doesn't realize that there are all these other really great things that you're doing outside of the classroom, that can be a way that you share the information with your recommender so that they have, and kind of round out their picture of you. They have a more complete picture of you and can speak about you in a more complete way in their recommendations. I really recommend creating a checklist for all the application requirements. I mean, a really simple spreadsheet will do the job, but making sure that you have that you keep track of all of the pieces that are required. You know, that I'm gonna have to make sure that this college has a counselor recommendation, a teacher recommendation, they need my transcript, they need my essay. Maybe a different college is asking for an art portfolio. You want to keep track of all the different requirements for these different places, not only for admission, but for financial aid and for scholarships. You want to track deadlines, give yourself that checklist. Many colleges will give you a checklist just for them, but having it all in one place on a spreadsheet can be really valuable. And the last thing I want to mention here is that it can be literally valuable to pursue outside scholarships. Colleges and universities award sometimes really surprisingly large amounts of both need-based aid and scholarships, but that's not the entirety of what you could be receiving to support you with the cost of college. Look for scholarships locally. Search websites, go through your school counseling office. Your school counselors often will gather scholarships, and especially those that might apply locally. And be sure to include that on your spreadsheet of all of it. So not only the deadlines for the colleges and universities that you're applying to, but also the scholarship programs that you're applying to. Okay, we have a few minutes left. And I want to hear your questions. I hope very much that this has been helpful, but I really invite questions, and feel free to keep dropping them into the Q&A. Our first question is, are standardized test scores the only criteria for college selection? And I will answer with a no that has a whole lot of exclamation points behind it. Absolutely not the only criteria for college selection. In fact, the College Board itself, which manages the largest standardized test in this country, the SAT, puts out research every year that shows that their test by itself is not the best predictor of success in college. They will annually put out this research to show that it is high school performance together with a standardized test that gives the best indication of what a student will do in college. But that's just the academic side of things, right? The transcript, what recommenders have to say about the work that a student has done academically, standardized test scores, these are measuring what you can contribute to a college or university academically. And that's important. That's very, very important. But that's not all of you. And there are a lot of colleges and universities that are embarking on a much more holistic admission process, meaning that they're not only looking at the academic factors, but all of the other things that you might be bringing to campus, right? You're a dancer or an athlete, you're a debater, you're a scientist, right? Like all of these things that go beyond just what you will do in one classroom, that might speak to the kind of research that you'll pursue, the kind of work on the field outside of the classroom, in our clubs, on our campus, the people that contribute to the life of a campus are the heart of that place. So we are absolutely interested beyond the simple academic indicators in all of the rest of you, all of the rest of what makes you you, and the things you want to try, and the things you're excited about, and the things that scare you too. Like we want to get to know you in this process, and ultimately we hope to select this really wonderfully diverse, interesting group of whole humans to be on our campuses. And we want you to be good students for sure, but that's not the entirety of it. Yeah, thank you for that question. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to suggest that there is so much more to the process than a score, so much more. I want to hold tight here for a moment in case any other questions come to our Q&A. And I want to, let me leave you with, I know we might have participants in this session who are at very different stages in the college search process, but some of the really big overarching themes, rely on and connect with your school counselor. Take advantage of opportunities close to home, and opportunities that might look safe. Remember, we talked about, like, both in terms of selectivity and in terms of finances, taking some risks in the process too. Let me go to this question. Do you have any suggestions of good websites to utilize in our search? I would say my favorite search engine is the one at collegeboard.org. If you go to collegeboard.org, you'll see their college search tools there. That is my favorite, but also be sure to look at what your school counseling office uses, because for instance, I've worked with a lot of schools that use Naviance, wonderful program and a really good search engine too. So there could be something available through the school as well. And let's see, next question. Do you have a college admission consultant, company, or organization to recommend? Oh, this isn't fair. This isn't fair, because I know some people in the Denver area that I think are absolutely brilliant, but I don't want to name names. It doesn't feel fair to those that I've just not had the pleasure of meeting. I do think that you can look to some national organizations like the Association of Independent Educational Consultants, Independent Educational Consultants Association, IECA, is a great organization to look to for people in your area. And you could work with an educational consultant anywhere in the world, but you can find people who are close by too, who you could have in-person meetings with. That's a great way to find some people who might add some support to the process. So that was my answer for Grace. And let's see, I'm going to go to Russell's question. Is resident status a factor in scholarships and financial aid? For example, being a citizen, a legal immigrant, green card holder, undocumented immigrant. I'm going to even back it up a little bit more. So yes, citizenship can matter, and where it matters very significantly is in the awarding of financial aid. The state and federal funding is often restricted. It is restricted to citizens, permanent residents, green card holders. And so there are limitations on who we can give state and federal funding to. That doesn't mean that a person without that citizenship standing is not able to be admitted. It just means that that college or university has to be willing to provide the funds that will not be supplemented by any state or federal grant programs, student loan programs, things like that. So yes, really good question. Good question for a school counselor as well, to get advice from someone who is right there on the ground at your school. Let's see here. I'm trying to pick a question that feels like it is maybe.
Unfortunately, Angie, we do have to wrap up. We do have other sessions later today. Thank you everyone for your questions. I'm sorry we can't get to all of them today. But Angie, I don't know if you have any other places that you can just recommend real quick for them to find resources that you might just recommend off the top of your head before we wrap up.
I think the ones that we've talked about, I think the school counseling office, collegeboard.org is a great one, but your school counselors might recommend some others as well. And be sure to reach out to colleges directly, both so that you can learn from the people who are on those campuses, and not just in a kind of directory search kind of format, but also so that they can get to know you. And I thank you all. It was so wonderful to talk with you this evening. I appreciate your questions and I wish you good luck.
Thank you so much, everyone. And as a reminder, the recording of this session will be posted likely within a couple days of this session at strivescan.com/Greater Denver. We hope to see you at future panels and sessions. Thank you so much.